Just down there is the start of the Royal Military Canal, a canal that was built with the idea of actually trying to stop Napoleon Bonaparte invading this part of southern England, Romney Marsh area, an invasion from the French back in the early 1800s. And I'll tell you a bit more about it, but down there, birds singing, you might be able to see the end of it is just down there, and at a place called Cliff End. I'm actually at Pett Level, which is not far from Fairlight, not that far from Hastings, between Hastings and Rye I suppose. And today I'm going to be walking towards Rye. Walked bits of it before, mainly at the other end. I've never started, because where it starts is a place called Shorncliffe, which is very near to Folkestone, and the whole canal itself is about 28 miles that cuts right the way across the Romney Marsh and effectively makes it into a top of an island, and it does use the River Rother as well, which is at Rye. And the bit that I'm on now, which is an extra bit really, because the bit from Rye, the River Rother, it's not easy to say that, you know, up here to Pett Level and to Cliff End is like a little bit that was added on, because originally the plan, or the original plans, were for it to just go from Shorncliffe to Rye to the River Rother. Then they decided to put this bit on as well, because it then does really make it into an island. But this little bit is a little bit smaller. Whether you can see it from where I am at the moment, I don't know, but I'll tell you the dimensions of the way it was built a bit later on. But this is a smaller bit, and if I sort of pan around, nice little panorama. You've got Pett Level behind me, which I've been on the beach, a great expanse here. There's a guy just coming along here with his binoculars for bird watching. This is a great area around here for bird watching. There's sheep all over the place. You might be able to hear the crows and everything as well. But the bit I'm walking today is just as far as Rye, really. Only a short distance, but I have done bits of this before. But I thought I'd come and have a look at it once again on a nice day in the summer. And there's a couple in front of me who obviously thought that's a good idea, we'll go out for a walk today as well. So not too far, but a little bit of history, a little bit of countryside, some birds, some sheep, you know, wildlife and all that other things as well. Can't be bad, can it? Well, here we are a little bit further along, and I'll show you a bit of the canal here, the Royal Military Canal. As I said, this bit was really a bit of an afterthought in some ways, because this is the end, the original part. It was started at Shorncliffe, as I said, which is a 20 odd miles, 25 miles or so away over in Kent near Folkestone. And the original idea, as I said, was to try and repel Napoleon, because he was at that time threatening, literally threatening to invade Britain. He was building up an army, a bit like William the Conqueror, I suppose, coming over from France with boats and everything like that as well. And so it was thought, how can we try and protect this? One idea was to actually flood the whole of the Romney Marsh, which is a great idea, but they reckon it would have taken about 10 days advance warning to actually do that, because this whole area is a load of sluices. You might be able to hear the water. Apart from the canal, there's rivers and there's channels. It's a bit like by the side of the Nile or something in Egypt, or even when I've been in Spain and the acequias that they use there to channel water. They do the same here for irrigation, to use for watering the crops and everything that grows here, because the soil here, because it's basically reclaimed land, the soil is pretty amazing, hence all the wildlife and that as well. I said they thought about trying to maybe flood the whole area. Yes, it would take 10 days notice, advance warning, and how often are you going to get that? But also there was that delicate subject, what happens if it was a false alarm and you flooded everyone's livelihood and destroyed everyone's houses, and for what? But the original plans were, and I've got it written down because it was quite amazing. This is, as I said, this is smaller, so it's not as big, but the original and the bigger parts were near the beginning of the actual canal itself, which is still there. It was meant to be 62 feet wide at the top, 44 feet wide at the bottom, so you can see the way that it slopes. 9 feet deep, so it's pretty deep as well. And also on the other side, the inland side, they were going to build a road and a big parapet. All the soil that was dug out was put onto a parapet, which was 35 feet wide, the parapet itself, and then the road was another 30 foot wide, and they put trees on the other side as well for shelter. They put gun emplacements and things like that, like pillboxes and other things have been built for the Second World War, because in some ways it was commissioned or recommissioned in some ways for all the sea defences and everything that were put together for the Second World War. And also they built Martello Towers right the way from East Anglia right the way through to Sussex as well, right the way along the coast. I've forgotten how many, but a real major building project, and it took a lot of money and a lot of time but quite amazing. And one day I'll show you the bigger bits. As I said, this is the afterthought. This is nowhere near as big, but it's still one hell of an engineering project. The canal itself is slightly wider here, still not as wide as it is in its main parts, but you might be able to see a bit of the bank there. Once again, this isn't as impressive as the banks further along on the proper part of the canal, should I say, but you can see the way that they've built up, taken the earth out from the canal itself and put it up on, that's the inwards, the landward side. If I turn around and show you some sheep. Hello, morning. And just over there in the distance is Pett Level and the sea as well, so you can see we're not that far away. And you might, and also some of the trees on the other side, because they use those, as I said, for sort of firing positions as well. And the bank was obviously yet another deterrent as well, because you've got to get across the marsh itself and all the people that might be defending it. Then you've got to get across this 9 foot deep body of water and over the parapet and get through all those people that are firing at you from behind the trees and that as well. And another point I said earlier on, the canal itself is 28 miles in from one length, from Shorncliffe right the way through to Cliff End behind me. Over 22 miles of that had to be dug by hand by the old navvies that they used to have in those days. And I said a trench canal that's 9 foot deep in places and 44 foot wide at the bottom or 62 foot wide at the top is that's some achievement. Well, I don't know if you can see this sort of dog leg part behind me. Come a little bit further along, and if I turn behind me you'll see that it's quite nice and straight, that bit down there. But they put these dog legs in purposely, and they're more noticeable on the main part of the canal, as I said, the other side of Rye towards Appledore and out Ham Street and out to Hythe and Shorncliffe itself. And the reason they were put, they're quite clever really when you think about it, is that they were using cannons as they used to do, or obviously bullets, but a lot of cannon emplacements and that were put up here as well. And the idea was they'd have a line of sight along the canal itself, so they could actually fire, and they'd only go a certain distance, and then the people would have to turn the corner if anyone was going to come around here and try and overtake it. They wouldn't fire on their own people too often. If it was dead straight all the way, which isn't really practical, but if it was dead straight all the way, they wouldn't be able to do that without the danger of hitting their own people. Quite a clever idea, I think, and something I only learnt about the other day. But I say it's certainly more prevalent if you look at it from the air. Look at a shot from the air, Google it, you know, you can do these days, and you'll see the way that it works, especially on the main bit. Keep going on about the main bit, I'll show you that one day, honest. I appear to have attracted an audience. I thought I could hear some people behind me. They're all coming down to have a look. Friendly, the locals around here, you know. Well, as I mentioned in an earlier bit, right in front of me now is just another one of the ditches, and the canal is just over there in the background there where those trees are. So apart from Napoleon or any other invading army, whether it be Napoleon or Hitler in the Second World War, would have had to negotiate these bits as well. I know there's bridges, but they would have got rid of them, wouldn't they? I'm sure they would have thought of that. So there's lots of obstacles to come across. We're coming to the end of this particular section now, and behind there, behind all those trees, and you might be able to see, I don't know if you can see them over there right behind me on the bank, there's a load of Canada geese with their chicks and that as well. But behind me on that hill, you can see more trees around here, as I was saying, is actually the old town of Winchelsea, the ancient town of Winchelsea, which the canal sort of cuts inland of as well. So it's trying to protect that, but then the Napoleonic armies or whatever would have to get over that big hill. And it's just reminding me, seeing some other places along here as well, of all the different walks around here that I've done in the past. And you keep, oh look, oh yeah, there's Mr. McCartney's windmill, or there's Wickham Manor. Places like that I've done on other walks around here as well. So I have walked this part before, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but very nice it is too. But as I said, it's all these little walks that you do in the area, and they all sort of intermingle with each other. And of course you can mix and match them. That's the beauty. Get a decent map. Or just learn by your mistakes. And there's all, like this particular path, the Royal Military Canal, there's a proper footpath for it, and it also follows the Saxon Shore Way in places as well. Lots of them you can get the booklets, all fine things, as I said, on the internet as well. But you can get proper little walking guides and things like that for these particular paths, and they're pretty well maintained generally. Say hello to Sean the sheep and his mates. I mentioned Winchelsea earlier on, and up there, probably see it, is one of the, if I pan in a little bit, is one of the original gates to the ancient town itself. I can't remember which one of these gates it is, but it's situated on a nice steep hill, and as you can see, you've got the canal down in front of me here, and then you have to go up there and get through to breach the city walls, and then get into the town itself. Quite impressive. Rye, 3 miles, and on the other side, Cliff End, 3 miles, the halfway point, and this is where part of it actually ends. You'll see this sort of big lock here, and as I said, Winchelsea is up through there in the distance, and this is where I need to get my map out and make sure where I go, because I've now got to cross a couple of roads. You see the main roads over here, look. I've safely negotiated the roads, gone through some bits of farm buildings and that, and I remember once coming out to this area that I'm going to right now and getting lost and ending up near a pumping station or a sewage station or something like that, and had to clamber over some fences and come out into the countryside here, because I'm actually a bit away from the canal now, because the canal's over sort of in that direction over there, but up ahead of me is a place that I've been before, which is on the way anyway, and this is the official path, because they build these roads and everything like that, so you can't actually always access the things that you want to. But if I turn around, if I can show you there in the distance, I don't know how well you can see it and whether it's there at all, but down there somewhere is Camber Castle, a place that, as I said, I've been to before and made videos about before, and another one of those strange defences. Here we are, Camber Castle, one of those places that isn't in Camber, by the way. It's the other side of Rye to Camber, for anybody who might think about it, coming here. But it's seemingly in the middle of nowhere, and in some ways that tells its own story, because this was built once again to repel invaders, but this time the Spanish, and this time it was Henry VIII who actually built this castle. And from the air you can see it's built in like a Tudor rose shape, but a bit like the Royal Military Canal. By the time this was actually finished, the threat from the Spanish Armada had gone, and one of the reasons is because here we are, this was built supposedly on the coastline, and if I turn around, the coast is well, it's over there somewhere. You can't see it. The land had silted up, or it had been reclaimed, and the threat of danger had gone. And so therefore it's been sitting here pretty much useless ever since. And in some ways the Royal Military Canal is the same, because by the time that was finished, finally finished and properly completed in about 1809, and it was started in 1805, the threat from Napoleon once again had gone as well. So we build all these things which turn out to be follies. They're built for very good reasons and for very sensible reasons in one way or another, but as with all these things, they take time to build, and by the time you finish them, the threat has disappeared. One of the good things about coming out here to Camber Castle is that usually the only things that you have to keep you company are sheep. And there are plenty of them around here. I haven't seen anybody else. There's an older lady walking towards the castle now, but it's pretty impressive. When you think that you can just, sun might get in the way here, but when you think you can just walk around here and there's nobody about, and it's just you and a castle that was built and designed by King Henry VIII, one of the most famous kings that's ever lived, in the world, I think in the history of the world, let alone an extensive history of Britain. I think that's pretty amazing. You can have it to yourself. I'm just wondering, okay, you can't get in, but you can get some idea of what it's like. Right, I think it's time to consult the oracle and find out exactly where we want to be. There is Camber Castle there. This is where we walked so far. And now up there, up here, and there's Rye, right there. Well, here we are. We've regained the canal, which, as you can see, does go all the way back up there. We just have to take a little bit of a detour and to come around here. The main road's over there. If I climb this bank, I might be able to see where we're headed, because up in the distance over there, past the sheep, there's another one of those ancient towns, town of Rye. That's Camber Castle over there, so I've walked down along here. If I swing round, there's Rye, not far to go. But if you look at this part of the canal here, with all these houses along here on the main road here, and it is navigable. Obviously, in places there are locks, so only parts of it would be for craft. But they've all got little landing jetties, and there's ducks up here and everything. Quite a nice little spot, really, isn't it? Here we are, we've reached the end of this particular part. We've come down to a little lock here, and that's pretty much it for this particular stretch. As I said, this is the extra stretch, and behind me, and I'll swing around in a minute, but you've got the town of Rye. That's if I come around now, all the cars and everything. There we go. The River Bree joins this place. Let's say you've got River Tillingham gets in the way, and the River Rother, and there's a big lock there as well. And really, Rye gets in the way, if you want to put it that way. And was its own defence, I suppose, and the rivers around here were their own defence. And then the actual canal proper really starts the other side. Well, here we are in Rye. That's the end of this little walk. I reckon that was about 6 or so miles, judging by what was said. And that's nice walk. Now I'm in Rye itself. You might be able to see the town behind me, and got about an hour. Have a wander around and get the train back. Can't be bad. But I shall, as I said, I shall be doing some of the other bits as well. But one of the great things about this particular walk in this area is that it's so flat as well. You know, everything. There's no real hills to speak of, so it's fairly gentle. And as I said, I'm going to try and do a bit more of it. I'd love to do a whole walk, do the whole thing in about 3 days, 28 miles, and do a proper video. Maybe another day. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the little walk. I know I did. Bye.